Hey guys, thank you so much for stopping by Prophetic Echoes for just a moment. I am Kevin Woodard. We welcome you to the channel. I just want to take a moment to share something with you that I find concerning that happened today in the United Nations Security Council. And this ties in with our video that we did recently entitled America's Demands on Israel. I'm going to put a link to that video in the description box, and you can click on that and watch that if you would like more information. But basically summing that video up, whenever America puts pressure on Israel to divide her land or to say she has rights to do this or not to do that in her own land, her being a sovereign nation, then we are overstepping our bounds and we're actually trying to bring division to the nation of Israel. And God does not look favorably upon that. Joel chapter 3 explains and talks about how God will judge the nations that try to divide Israel. And when we have done this in the past, we have paid for this through different calamities in our nation, many times through natural disasters, such as hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, and different types of things. And you can listen about that in the video, America's Demands on Israel. But today, I would like to read a headline to you and read a couple of things that were spoken today, and we'll be very brief with you today. Here's a headline from Reuters.com, and it says the UN Security Council demands immediate Gaza ceasefire after U.S. abstains. Those words there are scary. After the U.S. abstains, this article starts like this: the United Nations Security Council adopted a resolution on Monday demanding an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian militants Hamas after the United States abstained from the vote, sparking a spat with its ally Israel. This is not good news for the United States. The UN Security Council is demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. See, Israel right now, Hamas, you could say, is cornered in Rafah, in southern Gaza. And Israel is going to go in. They have to defeat these terrorists. There's a lot of civilians there as well. And so right now, the UN Security Council is demanding this ceasefire, but they're not demanding a release of the hostages. They're just demanding a ceasefire. Now, they're demanding the ceasefire without talking about the atrocities of October the 7th, without talking about what has happened in Israel. They're not mentioning the Hamas and the terrorist groups. They're just demanding this ceasefire. I want to read a few excerpts to you from Behold Israel, which is Amir Sephardi. That is his organization, his ministry, some things that he posted. And I want to read something as well that Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, as well stated. Amir Sephardi says, early in the morning, and today is March the 25th of 2024, he says, the Americans informed Israeli minister Ron Dermer that they intend to pass two separate resolutions in the Security Council that call, regardless of their relationship, one for a ceasefire and the other for a release of hostages without tying one to the other. They have to be tied together. Guys, for the ceasefire to happen, these hostages have to be released, and that's not even being included in these resolutions. Prime Minister Netanyahu to the members of the delegation to the USA. He says, if the U.S. does not veto today's decisions at the UN for a ceasefire that is not conditional on the release of hostages, I cancel the departure of the Israeli delegation to Washington. Amir Sephardi goes on to say, the Security Council approved a resolution calling for a ceasefire. No American veto was imposed. Guys, that to me is scary. We are Israel's ally. We should be supporting Israel. We had the power to veto this resolution, and we did not. We abstained. By abstaining, that speaks volumes. And it's concerning. This is why I say it's concerning for this nation, for America. We need to support her. We need to back her. We need to biblically bless that nation and back that nation, and let them know that we're here to help them and to protect them. And we didn't do that today. And this is why it's concerning to me. Amir Sephardi says the United States administration basically said that Hamas can stay in power and that the hostages are not to be released. He says big blow for Netanyahu and a great win for Hamas. Now here's a message from the Prime Minister's office, Benjamin Netanyahu. He says the U.S. withdrew from its consistent position in the Security Council, where it only a few days ago linked a ceasefire with the release of the abductees. China and Russia vetoed the previous resolution, partly likely because they supported a ceasefire without the release of the abductees. Russia and China supported the current decision, along with Algeria and other countries. The U.S. did not veto today the new text that calls for a ceasefire without the condition of releasing the abductees. This is a clear retreat from the consistent position of the U.S. in the Security Council since the beginning of the war. Did you catch that? It's a clear retreat from the consistent position of the U.S. The U.S. is now putting pressure on Israel, a pressure we should not be putting on Israel. He continues to say, this withdrawal hurts both the war effort and the effort to release the hostages, because it gives Hamas hope that international pressure will allow them to accept a ceasefire without the release of our hostages. Prime Minister Netanyahu made it clear last night that if the U.S. withdraws from its principled position, he will not send the Israeli delegation to the U.S. In light of the change in the American position, Prime Minister Netanyahu decided that the delegation would not leave. I want to read something else here that Amir Safari from Behold Israel posted. Listen to these words. Hamas, in an official announcement, welcomes the decision of the UN Security Council and calls on the Security Council to put pressure on Israel so that it is committed to the decision. Imagine that. We emphasize the importance of reaching a permanent ceasefire that will lead to the withdrawal of all Zionist forces from the Gaza Strip and the return of the refugees to their homes. Hamas is certainly satisfied. If the U.S. thinks that this will pressure Hamas to be flexible towards reaching a deal, then it is wrong. The decision at the UN will lead to a hardening of positions on the part of Hamas. Hamas feels that the U.S. also stands by its side in putting pressure on Israel. It has no reason to be flexible in the negotiations. Let me read to you what Mike Pence said, former Vice President Mike Pence. He said regarding this resolution of the UN. He said, this is a disgrace. The UN Security Council passed a resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire that makes no mention of Hamas or October 7th, and the Biden administration let it pass without a veto. After the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, Israel must be allowed to wage war until Hamas is destroyed once and for all. America stands with Israel. Our Vice President Kamala Harris, she says, and these words here are very alarming. She said in an interview with the American ABC network that an Israeli operation in Rafah could be problematic for Israel. She says, I studied the maps. These people have nowhere to go, referring to the civilians. When asked if such an operation would have consequences against Israel, listen to her response. Listen to what she says. She did not rule it out. And she says, we will go step by step. I am not ruling anything out. The U.S. failed to veto a resolution at the UN Security Council calling for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire during Ramadan, as well as the immediate unconditional release of the hostages in Gaza. That comes from Hope for Israel, the part I just read. Guys, the reason I'm coming to you today and sharing this with you is simply because this to me is concerning. We had the opportunity today to veto this, to stop the demand of this resolution for this ceasefire. We did not do it. We abstained. That to me speaks volumes. So I'm going to put the link there. You can go watch the video, America's Demands on Israel, and how that has gone for us in the past. It's not been good. And so thank you for taking some time to listen to this, and we will see you soon. Be blessed. Thanks so much.